Okay, so get ready for this, because today we're taking our deep dive somewhere we haven't been before.
Oh.
Yeah. This time, we're not going to be digging into, like, research papers or articles or anything like that.
Right.
We're going straight into fiction.
Wow.
Okay?
Okay.
We're going to be looking at excerpts from a novel called Confidential by Mikołaj Grynberg.
Interesting. Using fiction to kind of jumpstart our exploration.
Exactly. And that's kind of what makes this deep dive so cool, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're getting a little taste of something really amazing.
A little appetizer.
Yeah. Just enough to make you, want more.
Right.
Hooked.
Right.
We're not here to, like, give away the whole plot or anything.
Right.
But we want to give you a sense of the atmosphere, the themes.
The vibe.
The vibe. And Grynberg's just incredible writing style.
Definitely. He's a really powerful writer.
So hopefully by the end of this, you'll be like, gotta read this whole book.
Yeah, I think people will be really interested to check it out.
For sure.
Well, even just in these excerpts we're looking at, there are these lines, these just like really insightful, punchy lines that just stay with you.
Oh, like what?
Well, there's this one character who says lies don't have short legs.
Mm.
And another one warns you have to watch out because around good people, there are often bad ones lurking.
Ooh, that's chilling.
Right. Especially when you think about the context.
Yeah, the Holocaust.
Exactly.
Wow.
It really sets the stage for this world of like suspicion and uncertainty that this family is trying to navigate.
For sure, yeah.
And then there's this other line, it's a question one character asks, and it just like breaks your heart. If I can't trust you, who can I trust?
Wow.
Imagine trying to rebuild your life after the Holocaust and you don't even know who to trust.
It's heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's really powerful.
You've definitely made me curious.
Good.
So you mentioned earlier Grynberg's kind of unique writing style.
Yeah.
What is it about his style that stands out to you?
Well, one thing that I noticed is this thread of dark humor that runs through the stories.
Really?
Yeah.
That's kind of unexpected given the subject matter.
Right. But it adds this like layer of complexity to it.
Mm.
There's this doctor character, for example. He uses jokes almost like a shield.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he deflects serious conversations even when he's confronted with really tragic stuff.
I see. So it's not just humor for the sake of it.
No, not at all.
It's almost like a coping mechanism.
Exactly.
It makes you wonder what's going on beneath the surface, what he's trying to hide.
Right, like what's he protecting himself from?
Exactly.
There's this scene where the doctor's friend is kind of worried because his wife might overhear the doctor's like off-color jokes. And the doctor's response, he tells an even more outrageous joke about a tax collector and, well, let's just say it involves circumcised boys.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he takes it to a whole other level.
But it does make you think about how people deal with trauma. Right.
For sure.
Like maybe humor, even really dark humor, is a way of acknowledging the pain without actually having to directly confront it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point.
I mean, you see it elsewhere too, right? Like there's that part where the grandfather deflects his grandson's question about being Jewish.
Right.
And he does it by making this joke about a bodybuilder in Dachau.
It's jarring.
It is jarring, but at the same time, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like maybe it's just easier to laugh at how absurd it all is than to face the actual horror of it.
It's easier to distance yourself that way.
Yeah.
I think Grynberg really captures that.
Yeah.
This like delicate dance between acknowledging the darkness and finding ways to deal with it.
He's making me want to read this book right now.
You should.
Based on what you've said so far, it seems like Confidential doesn't shy away from how complex memory is and how it shapes the lives of these characters.
It really doesn't.
That's cool.
And another thing that's really interesting is that the novel jumps around in time and perspective.
Oh.
Yeah, you're constantly moving between different characters and their own unique experiences.
So it's not a straightforward story then?
Not at all. Like,
Right.
one minute you're totally absorbed in this woman's complicated relationship with her mother who, got her back from an orphanage after the war.
Wow.
And then suddenly you're transported to a completely different scene with a son who's struggling with his father's fading memory and this fear of losing him.
Oh, wow.
It keeps you on your toes trying to piece together this like fragmented history.
That's so cool. It's almost like it mirrors how our own memories work, right?
Exactly.
Not always linear, but full of jumps and flashes of clarity.
It's like we're experiencing the characters' memories right alongside them.
Wow, so we're trying to connect the dots just like they are.
Exactly.
So speaking of connecting the dots, were there any like recurring themes or motifs or anything that stood out to you?
Oh, yeah. There's one that's really intriguing. It's the motif of names and identity. It's like names become these super loaded symbols in the novel. representing the struggle to reclaim a sense of self after the Holocaust.
Yeah, I can see how that would be really powerful, especially given, the historical context.
Absolutely, and there's some really poignant examples of it.
Like what?
Well, for instance, there's this story about a woman who decides to change her name back to her father's name after, like, 50 years.
50 years.
Can you imagine carrying that weight, that feeling of a lost identity for so long?
It's a powerful act, right? Like she's reclaiming her heritage.
Exactly. She's saying, this is who I am despite everything that's happened.
Yeah.
And then there's this other story, it's almost ironic, about a family who changes their name, just temporarily though, to one that ends in ski during a really turbulent time.
Interesting.
So in one case, a name is reclaimed, and in the other, it's used as a way to, like, blend in, potentially even escape danger.
That's almost like a mask.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
really highlights how names can be both a source of, like, who you are, but also a tool for survival.
Right. It makes you question, what does a name really mean?
Yeah.
Is it just a label, or is it something deeper, something connected to belonging, your history, who you are at your core?
It's a great question to think about.
It is.
And I bet Greenberg explores it in some really interesting ways.
Oh, he does, for sure.
I can't wait to hear more.
Oh, we've only just scratched the surface.
I know. I'm excited to keep diving in.
Me too. It's amazing. As we get deeper into these excerpts,
Yeah.
what really strikes me is how they highlight the resilience of the human spirit.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Even after facing, like, unimaginable horrors,
Right.
these characters find ways to rebuild their lives.
That's pretty incredible.
And to find moments of joy, even amidst, the shadows of the past.
Yeah, but it's not a simple, happy ending kind of resilience, is it?
No, not at all.
It feels more layered, more complex than that.
Exactly. It's not about forgetting what happened or pretending it didn't happen.
Right.
It's about acknowledging the pain, but still choosing to move forward.
Right.
It's about, finding a way to live with the weight of history without letting it crush you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to put it.
Thanks.
There's this one story, Years of Tears, that really stuck with me.
Oh, yeah, that's a powerful one.
It's about a young woman who's reunited with her mother
Right.
after spending years in orphanages,
Years.
and the mother isn't like the same woman she remembers.
Right, she's changed.
Yeah.
But she eventually accepts her,
And she even changes her last name.
She does, back to her father's name.
After 50 years.
After 50 years, it's incredible.
It's like she's reclaiming her family history, her identity after all that time.
Yeah, she's refusing to let the past define her.
It's a powerful act.
It is.
It also makes you think about family ties, right?
Absolutely.
Even when they're complicated.
Especially when they're complicated.
How those connections can help us get through, like, really, really tough times.
I think that's one of the things that Grynberg does so well in this book. He shows us the power of those connections.
Yeah. But family is definitely a central theme in all these excerpts.
It is.
But it doesn't always seem like a source of comfort, right?
No, you're right.
Sometimes it seems like it creates even more tension, more conflict.
Yeah, like, it's not all, warm and fuzzy.
Exactly.
Like in that story, Englishman, he describes these Sunday lunches at the grandparents' house.
Right.
And they're so tense, almost like these rituals with
Yeah.
all these awkward silences and the grandfather's, outbursts.
Yeah, it just seems really, really fraught.
Yeah, it does.
And then there's that moment when the grandson says he'd rather be an Englishman.
Oh, I know. And the grandfather admits he feels the same way.
It's such a loaded statement, right?
Absolutely.
Especially given their history.
Yeah, you really sense this feeling of being outsiders,
Like they don't belong.
of not fully belonging,
Yeah.
even within their own family.
It makes you think about, like, what it means to be Jewish
Right.
in post-war Poland, right?
Exactly.
How do you, like, hold on to your heritage and your identity
Right.
while also trying to find a place in a society that maybe doesn't fully accept you?
That's such a relevant question even today.
It is.
Belonging, identity, the search for acceptance.
It's something we all struggle with in some way.
I think so too.
It's cool how Grynberg doesn't shy away from those tough questions.
He really doesn't.
Yeah, it's like he's more interested in exploring the gray areas, the nuances of, how our individual experiences actually shape the choices we make.
Yeah, he's not trying to give us easy answers.
Right? He's making us think.
He's making us think. He's making us question things.
Yeah, and to wrestle with those issues right alongside his characters.
Exactly.
Something else that stood out to me was the way memory plays such a big role in these stories.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's not just about remembering the past, right?
No.
It's about how those memories actually shape our present.
It's like the past is a character in the novel.
Yes.
It's like always there, lurking beneath the surface,
Right.
influencing relationships, shaping decisions.
It's almost inescapable.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it.
I'm thinking of the story after the lesson
Okay.
where this seemingly mundane accusation of theft
Right.
triggers this, like, traumatic memory for the mother.
Oh, yeah, that's a really intense scene.
It brings back all the fear and uncertainty of the war years.
It's like she's reliving it.
It is. It's like she's right back there.
And it just shows how deeply those memories are ingrained,
Yeah.
how they can resurface even when you least expect it.
Even years later.
Even years later.
Even when you're, like, really trying to move on.
The past has a way of finding you.
It does.
And Grynberg explores that in such a subtle but powerful way.
He does. And there's another story, a funeral scenario, that explores memory in a totally different way.
Oh, tell me about that one.
So the main character finds herself drawn to funerals.
Really? Funerals.
But it's not out of grief.
Oh.
It's out of this longing to feel something, to experience the, like, catharsis of tears
I see.
that she hasn't been able to access since she was a child.
Wow, that's so interesting.
It's such a unique way of looking at loss
Yeah.
and the complexities of grief.
It's like she's searching for a release, a way to connect with those emotions that have been, like, buried deep inside.
Exactly. And it really speaks to the lasting impact of trauma. And how people cope in all sorts of different ways.
It's a powerful reminder that healing isn't always straightforward.
Or predictable.
Yeah, you never know what form it might take.
Like attending funerals to feel something, to
Right.
feel anything.
It's a really, really powerful image.
Grynberg's really good at getting to the core of human experience, isn't he?
He really is.
So far we've got resilience,
Yeah,
complex family dynamics,
definitely.
the enduring power of memory.
It's a lot.
It is a lot.
A lot to think about.
Are there any other, like, recurring elements that you noticed?
This might sound a little strange,
What?
but I was really fascinated by the way Grynberg uses objects as symbols.
Oh, interesting.
Almost like they have a life of their own.
Okay, give me an example.
Well, there's one story, Swiss Army knife, where the grandfather gives his grandson a Swiss Army knife,
Uh-huh.
and it becomes the symbol of both protection and destruction
Interesting.
because he uses it to disable the grandfather's car
Oh, wow.
to prevent a potential accident.
So it's not just a random object.
No, it's loaded with meaning.
Like it represents that duality in the characters,
Yes.
their capacity for both good and bad.
Exactly.
And it makes you think about how, like, even ordinary things can be so meaningful.
Right. They can hold so much weight.
Yeah, and it seems like the grandfather is a pretty complicated character himself.
He is. He's not a simple guy.
Yeah, you mentioned his outbursts before.
Yeah.
But he also seems to have this softer side to him.
Yeah, he does.
In the story Dad's Dog,
Right.
he gets, like, totally fixated on this sick dog in the hospital.
Yeah, it's almost like he's projecting his own anxieties and fears onto this animal.
It's touching, but also a little unsettling. It's like he's trying to make sense of his own mortality
Right.
through this connection with the dog.
That makes a lot of sense.
It really makes you think about, like, how much of his behavior comes from his wartime experiences.
Right. The trauma that he's carrying with him.
It's a reminder that the past isn't really past for these characters.
Not at all.
It's woven into their lives.
Yeah.
It impacts their relationships, their choices, even their dreams.
And Grynberg seems to be saying something about us, too,
Like all of us.
Like all of us as humans, we
Yeah.
all carry our past with us.
Yeah, we do.
Whether we realize it or not. And
Wow.
those experiences really shape who we are.
How we interact with the world.
Ex-
And sometimes, like, those confrontations with the past, they're really uncomfortable.
They can be.
They can be painful,
Yeah.
but they're also really important for growth and understanding.
It's about facing the complexities of history.
Right.
Acknowledging both the good and the bad.
The heroic and the cowardly.
The compassionate and the cruel.
Yeah, all of it.
It's about recognizing that we're all a product of our past.
Yeah, shaped by the stories we inherit.
And the choices that were made by those who came before us.
And that recognition can be really challenging, but it can also be incredibly liberating.
I agree.
So if you do decide to read Confidential, and I hope you will,
I hope so too.
really pay attention to the little things.
The details.
The objects, the places, the details that seem insignificant.
They often hold hidden meanings.
Yeah, like clues.
Clues to unlocking the deeper themes of the novel.
It's like Grynberg is trusting his readers to be active participants.
Exactly.
To really engage with the text and come to their own conclusions.
It's a conversation.
Yeah.
It's an invitation to explore all these complexities.
Of memory, of identity, and the enduring power of the past.
Yeah, it's not a passive read.
It's a journey.
It is. It's a journey.
It's making me think about my own family history.
Me too.
The stories that have been passed down through generations.
We all have those stories.
Oh, we do?
And sometimes it takes a book like Confidential to make us stop and really think about what they mean.
How they've shaped us.
Absolutely.
And on that note, I think we're ready for the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
We'll be exploring some of the bigger, more philosophical questions that Confidential raises.
Okay.
What does it mean to live with a legacy of trauma?
Right.
How do we make sense of a world where good and bad are so intertwined?
These are big questions.
They are.
But I think Grynberg gives us some really interesting ways to think about them.
I think so, too.
Stay tuned for part 3.
All right, so we've talked about resilience, we've talked about family dynamics, and the power of memory.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
But there's still more to explore.
Exactly. So now in this final part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear what you think about some of the bigger questions that Confidential raises.
Okay, yeah.
Like really big stuff.
Yeah.
The nature of truth, the weight of history, what it all means.
You know, you're right. Grynberg really doesn't shy away from those huge, like, existential questions.
You got to.
And he doesn't just, tack them on at the end or anything.
Mhm.
He weaves them right into the fabric of these personal, intimate stories.
It's pretty cool.
It makes you realize that even within, like, the smallest human moments, there are these, like, universal truths just waiting to be discovered.
Yeah, it's like he's inviting us to think about these really deep concepts,
Right.
but not some like detached academic way.
No, not at all.
It's through the lives of real people, these characters who are, flawed and relatable.
Exactly. You feel like you could know them.
Yeah.
One story that really stuck with me in terms of these big questions is Our Parents' Address book.
Oh, okay.
It's about these two brothers who are dealing with the loss of both their parents.
Whoa.
And they suddenly have to, like, notify everyone.
It's a big job.
It is. And it's not just about sending out notices,
Right. It's about confronting this huge void in their lives.
Exactly.
And made me think about, like, legacy.
Legacy, yeah.
What we leave behind, how we're remembered after we're gone.
It's a big one, isn't it?
It is.
And it's not just about, our stuff, our possessions. It's about the impact we have on the people around us.
Right. The memories, the stories.
The ripple effect of a life.
Yeah. How do you even begin to make sense of that?
It's a question we all grapple with, I think.
I'm also thinking about the story Our Father, which explores this really often turbulent relationship between a father and son.
Right. There's a lot of tension there.
Yeah, a lot of clashes, a lot of unmet expectations, this longing for understanding.
It's so real,
Yeah, it made me think about how complicated family roles can be.
Absolutely. Like, we can be so close to the people in our families, and yet we can also hurt each other so deeply.
We can disappoint each other.
You can misunderstand each other.
There's this one part in that story that just really got to me.
Which part?
It's where the father finds out he's going to be a grandfather.
Oh, yeah. And instead of being happy,
he just collapses.
it's such a powerful moment.
It is. It's so unexpected.
You'd think he'd be, over the moon.
Right. Thrilled.
But instead, it's like this wave of all these complicated emotions just hits him.
Like all at once.
All at once.
The weight of everything. His past, his anxieties, his hopes for the future.
It all just crashes down.
It's a reminder that even the most, reserved people, the people who seem really strong,
Yeah.
are still vulnerable.
To those really intense emotions.
Especially when it comes to family.
And it's amazing how Grynberg captures that,
He does.
He shows us how those vulnerabilities can, like, sneak up on us.
When we least expect it.
Exactly.
There's another story, Transplant, that also looks at family relationships.
Oh, yeah. That one's really interesting, too.
It focuses on the changing dynamic between a father and son as the father gets older.
And needs more help.
Yeah, and becomes more reliant on his son's care.
There's that scene where the son takes over his father's desk at work.
Yes.
It's so symbolic.
It is.
It's like he's not just inheriting a desk,
Yeah.
he's accepting a legacy, a responsibility.
And it's not an easy thing for him.
No, there's resistance at first,
Uh-huh. He wants to do his own thing.
but eventually he comes to terms with it.
Yeah. He honors his father's memory by stepping into his shoes.
It's such a beautiful metaphor, you know,
It is.
for the passing of generations, the way we inherit the good and the bad from those who came before us.
It also makes you think about how we define family, right?
Right.
And how those bonds change over time.
It's not static, it's always evolving.
You know, something else I found really interesting was the way Grynberg tackles the idea of truth in these stories.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's not always clear-cut, is it?
No, it's messy.
Like, what's true for one person might not be true for someone else.
It's subjective. It's filtered through our own experiences.
The story Coffee Marks really shows that, I think.
Yeah,
The main character is, like, watching this couple in a cafe.
Okay.
And we see him projecting all his own assumptions and interpretations onto them.
Oh, I see.
It's like we all do that, right?
We do. We look at the world through our own lenses.
Colored by our own biases and expectations.
And our past experiences.
Yeah, it makes you question how much you can trust your own memories.
Right. Like how much of what we remember is actually what happened.
And how much is, like, our own version of it.
It's a really, really fascinating question.
And I think that's what makes Grynberg so good.
What do you mean?
He doesn't try to give us easy answers.
He embraces the ambiguity.
Yeah, he embraces the gray areas, the messiness of being human.
Absolutely. And I think that's what makes these stories so powerful.
They resonate with us.
Yeah, because they reflect our own experiences.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I have to ask, what's the takeaway?
The takeaway? That's a good question.
What do you hope people, take away from these excerpts?
I think the biggest thing is recognizing how interconnected our lives are.
Yeah.
How the past continues to influence the present.
Uh-huh.
How our individual stories are like reflections of bigger historical forces.
It's about confronting the complexities of family, of memory, of identity,
Yeah, all of that.
and finding meaning in a world that often feels really chaotic,
And unpredictable.
and finding beauty and humor too.
Yes. Even in the face of adversity.
It's about cherishing those moments of connection, of love.
Of shared humanity.
Grynberg reminds us that we're not alone in this.
And I think that's really important.
It is. And, it all comes back to the power of storytelling, right?
Absolutely.
The way we use stories to make sense of the world.
To connect with each other, to remember, to hope.
So if these excerpts have even, sparked a little bit of curiosity in you,
Yeah, even a little
I
bit.
really encourage you to check out Confidential.
Read the whole thing.
Experience Grimbal's writing for yourself.
It's a book that will stay with you.
It will make you think. It will make you feel.
And it might even make you question everything you thought you knew about history, about family, about what it means to be human.
As we finish up here,
Yeah.
I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay, I like that.
What stories do you carry within yourself?
Good one.
What stories have shaped your life?
Your worldview.
It's something to think about.
It is.
Until next time, happy reading, everyone.
Yeah.